spills over the bottom of the window, over the windowsill. So if I test the air, I test it down there because that's where I can notice first what's in it. If the air quality index has accurately reported the quality of my air in the neighborhood. What's a rehab re-injury? I am recording this video with my Wi-Fi off, with all the device radios off, at least the ones I can control. I did not expect to do this morning. I'm recording a little before 8 a.m. A very interesting flow of energy has been occurring due in large part to the somatic practice we've been anchoring with Thea Soma. These are going to be short videos. Am I really doing this? I'm doing it. We have some ideas about how we'll publish them, but we'll discover what happens when we try it. Outcomes, trajectories, patterns of engagement, I cannot predict. This morning, right now, I'm feeling a bit shocked to be sitting here recording this, but it's certainly a different experience if I keep all of the internet radios off, Wi-Fi, 5G, Bluetooth. I think there are separate settings on the Android device for 3G, 2G. There were several of them. I don't think it lets me turn off 1G. I think that's what continues working, although sometimes the other ones seem to continue working even when I turn them off, so I'm not exactly sure what's going on there. But I turn off every one of them that I can reach. And that helps me regain function when I'm experiencing re-injury. So when one is rehabilitating after concussion injuries, and also many other forms of injury, one tests one's parameters, one tests one's functions, one's current limitations to discover where one is at. And not only is it very tricky sometimes to find out where we're really at with our functions, sometimes it's not actually possible to avoid re-injury. We want to minimize it as much as possible, but it can catch us off guard. And for those with long-term compounded, very severe neurological injuries, and other injuries that I've experienced and that we've discussed in our intuitive groups, me and colleagues, the learning to stabilize one's physical energy, especially if you've been held in place a lot, if you haven't been able to move, you haven't been able to be mobile, you can be various forms of what is essentially sedentary, even though it can be a very active form of sedentary or an active form of stillness. There is a lot of learning, there is a lot of physical rehabilitation required so that when you flow your physical energy, if you're experiencing increasing physical energy as you're increasingly stabilizing, increasingly nourishing the body, getting away from toxic contaminants, getting away from EMF radiation, the energy increases in the body in what can be very unpredictable ways. And then the body must learn to ground the energy. The body must learn to flow the energy in a steady way. Because until the body learns to flow the energy in a steady way, it can be really jerky, like this. Ooh, that's really painful for my head to make that motion. So my rehab re-injury happened as a result of really amazing rehab successes. And as I am regrouping, one of the things that I am experiencing over and over again is the excitement and the celebration of recognizing how far I got with what I was trying to do. And that's a huge list of things. It's not only what was more visible, the audio broadcasting I did on Clubhouse for about, I think it was 5 days. And then the next day after that, I began video live streaming on our Simultistreams with Streamyard to many different platforms. I did that for 5 days. And on the fourth day, I had a short notice scheduled cranial realignment session because I had gone too long without it. And at that session, we found out that my head bones had moved a bit backwards from where we were moving them to. And so the session was more intense than it had been previously, but I felt good. I felt disoriented. I felt I had some funny experiences, which is part of how that works. But then I was okay. We left the Institute and we got in the car, and I felt like I had a lot of energy, and we did some other things. And we were talking a lot about how important it is for me to be singing because of the ways that rehabilitates vagus nerve function, which has everything to do with everything in the head and in the whole body. But we were about almost back home in the car, and I started realizing that I was having pretty bad pain in a number of places, and I remembered what that meant. And I said, oh, I think I've hurt myself. Let's see how I feel through the evening. Let's see how I feel tomorrow morning. And that fourth day that I had been simulti-streaming on Intuitive Public TV each morning, in the evening, our group with Intuitive Soma had a somatic practice session with Thea, and it went really well. It was really amazing for me, and I noticed a lot of things as part of that session, but then I had some other things that went on through the evening. That was later that evening was the full moon in Scorpio. Some really interesting flows of experiencing. And then I went to sleep, but as I was falling asleep, I thought, I re-injured myself. I'm going to have to change the plan here. And then by the next morning, it was really clear that I was going to have to stay away from the device radiation, and I was going to have to radically draw back my physical activities. Physical activities meaning anything and everything. So then the fifth day, no, I'm saying it wrong. The fifth day was the full moon in Scorpio. The fourth day was the head bones session. The fifth day was the full moon in Scorpio in the evening. I did the live stream the fifth day that morning, after having my headphones moved in the evening. And then the full moon in Scorpio was later on the evening of the 5th day, which was the 23rd. This is really murky. And it was by that evening, it was that Tuesday, the 23rd, that we had our somatic session that went so well. And then the evening of the 23rd, I realized I have a re-injury. And the morning of yesterday, the 24th, I'm doing this pretty well. I'm a little scrambly, but I'm doing it. The morning of the 24th, yesterday, I did not broadcast. And I was able to send out some notes, but often if that happens, I'm not able to send out much. It really, really limits or eradicates my function. So then yesterday, there was a lot of repatterning for me about how to proceed or not proceed, as the case may be. And we discussed a lot in our intuitive soma and intuitive prowess group about how we are going to really center and anchor the somatics, because that's what I have to be focusing on. In certain ways, I would say exclusively, but of course, because the somatics connect to everything else, it's a really broad territory. It's not a really like precise subject. It interrelates with everything. And so the focus on somatic practice, at least in terms of planning and making sure that each day I can remember what is the next thing, not to leap into social media, certainly not to continue a broadcast schedule when my body needs first to heal. And be careful not to get drawn into other kinds of activities that would not be supportive enough of the recovery that my body needs. But to look for all of the subject intersections that re-anchor me in the somatic practice. And simultaneously, which is what we do in the network, to re-anchoring me in my somatic practices, to share whatever's easiest for me to share so that many others across the network can also feel the social contact of also anchoring their somatic practices. The social element of it is tremendously reparative for relational neurology. And it is something that we really need, especially if we are isolated from being able to meet in person, which affected so many of us before it became a more widespread phenomenon where people were having to stay inside and not meet for all kinds of reasons. So that focus on somatics took me to a really good place yesterday evening, and I've been really anchoring restfulness first, always reminding myself that I'm choosing the greatest restfulness until whatever unknown point on whatever unknown time frame where the action that emerges from the body is emerging from my most effortless joyfulness, that being moved by nature, as Thea anchors, being moved by the universe, something we've talked about a lot in different ways. not to have this is more of Thea's language, not to have a top down, the mind controlling the body experience nearly as much as a bottom up experience where the deep sensing and experiencing of the body is primary. And so we're really listening to the signals of the body because we've all been influenced by systems and multi-generational influences that have got us thinking and thinking and thinking. Oh, I can't make faces like that. Oh, wow. Trying to control things with our mind thinking, trying to force ourselves to do things that our bodies know are not right for us. But there is a lot of erasure of the real experiences that bodies are having. So we really anchor down in that deepened sensing so that we're being true to our bodies. I'm going to keep saying things that Thea has said to me. Thea has said, Thea, I'll say it from my vantage, but Thea's the one who originally said this to me, and it was really powerful for me to really like be there with it. My body is the only animal that I will have a relationship with for my entire life. And my experience of being with that anchor point that Thea provided is that my body has brought herself in service to me my whole life in ways that I didn't understand, ways that had been occluded by my environments. I had been taught to distrust. I had been taught to dishonor. I had been taught to erase, really, from my experience, because that's what's been required in most of my environments. So that by the time I experienced poisoning and neurological injury, and my disablement became more and more severe, more or less 10 years ago, I had even been practicing to be more deeply in contact with my body. But even with that practice, I was so cut off from my body. I had so many toxic influences around me. My body was not clearing those toxins because of a genetic dysregulation that it turns out a lot of people have. So, people around me might be successfully navigating in one way or another, or they might be successfully masking it in their bodies. But my body was breaking down and falling apart, and I was having life and death experiences increasingly, which of course were mischaracterized because a lot of people don't know that this is happening. And there is a lot of corporate obfuscation going on about it. So we can talk more about that. But the point here for me today is that in terms of rehab, re-injury, and my regrouping that I'm doing, the restfulness, the recovery, the somatics are of ultimate importance. And I will be bringing that in a lot more, even than I had originally planned, on a completely unpredictable schedule, with no idea what the outcomes are as regards recording something on a device like this one, even with all the radios off. Live streaming, I don't know what happens. But we have a pre-scheduling option that I haven't quite fully explored yet. So something could happen there. I don't know what it is. I think you will see me on Substack. I think you will see me on social media. There may be large spaces between. The place to find me and us always when recovery challenges are most challenging is Telegram Messenger, because that's always the first and easiest thing for us to reach when we can reach a device. For those of us working on the network, Telegram is our hub of media coordination, group support, and communications. So you can be part of that at any time by reaching out to us there. Introduce yourself at t.me/communityipr. You can reach out to me directly. Let me know how you found me. t.me/Max Morris, MAXMORRIS. If you just say hello, I won't be able to tell if you're a bot, and I might not be able to respond, but tell me that you saw this video, and we can strike up a conversation in the timing that my body allows. Please be really patient with my responses. Sometimes it does take me a long time, but do keep sending me messages in kindness-oriented and respectful ways, and I will be so delighted to connect with you. What I'm describing to you through this whole rehab re-injury conversation is the intuitive infrastructure we have built so that people having these kinds of experiences can always have some kind of gradual path to restoring media privilege and having more directly participatory conversations at the level of collective media discourse, because of how important that is. And how it makes such a tremendous difference in recovery trajectory for people to be able to connect with one another, to connect with the broader community, repairing the relational neurology. Okay, there's some more pain. I've been recording for a little under 25 minutes, maybe. I am considering this offline recording to be a live broadcast that I will not be reviewing or editing or doing anything with except uploading wherever I end up uploading it. And that will happen in divine timing, as is cosmically perfect. If you would like to be involved in our intuitive network somatic practicing, you are so invited. I hope you'll find those links again, because I don't think I can repeat them. I have been doing my best to plaster them all over the internet. Comment on a Substack post or on a video and say, what is that link again? And I will, in some way, at some point, I will show up and I will help you find it, or maybe somebody else will before I get to it. Wow, we've been having amazing adventures. I'm going to go now and rest. Thank you for spending this time with me. I will see you in the very near future. I am very excited.